Before the gods, before the world, before time itself, there was only darkness and a void so vast that nothing could exist within it. No sun, no stars, no life, only an endless abyss known as Ginnungagap. But then something extraordinary happened. Two powerful forces collided, the scorching flames of Muspel and the freezing winds of Niflheim. From their clash, a being was born, a giant so massive, so terrifying, that his very existence would shape the fate of the universe. His name was Ymir. This is the story of how the Norse cosmos was created, of the first battle between gods and giants, and of the origins of the mighty Odin himself. Welcome to the beginning of everything, the dawn of Norse mythology. The beginning of the world of giants, gods, and men. The beginnings of the universe are narrated in several ways throughout three main poems in the Elder Edda, with Snorri Sturluson subsequently offering a synthesis version in his Prose Edda. Snorri also provides new information, perhaps obtained from lost sources. Among these stories, Völuspá gives what appears to be the most organized rendition of the creation tale. It is recounted by an ancient seeress, nurtured by prehistoric giants. Initially, there was only Ginnungagap, a huge magical nothingness. Then, three gods, Odin and his brothers, shaped the earth, possibly raising it from the sea, where it would ultimately return. As sunshine hit the bleak countryside, the ground bloomed with vegetation. Later, Odin and two other gods spotted two dead tree trunks, Askr and Embla, lying on the beach. They provided them breath, intelligence, hair, and beauty, thus creating the first human beings. A variant account is recorded in Vafthrud Nismal, the Lay of Vafthrudnir, which traces existence back to a primeval giant, Argelmir, also called Ymir. This behemoth originated from poisonous drips that spurted from the turbulent rivers of Elavagar. From his body, unusual life forms arose. One of his legs fathered a six-headed son with the other, and beneath his arms a man and a woman developed. According to Snorri, Odin and his brothers subsequently slaughtered Ymir, using his corpse to create the world. His bones became the mountains, his head the sky, and his blood the sea. Another poem, Grimnismal, the Lay of Grimnir Odin, adds on this by telling that Ymir's hair became the trees and his mind turned into clouds. Snorri, relying on these sources, gives a more complete tale. One prominent inclusion is the primordial cow, Audumla, birthed from melting rime. She lived by licking salty, frost-covered stones, and 4 rivers of milk gushed from her udders, nourishing Ymir. As she continued to lick the stones, she eventually fashioned a man, Buri, the progenitor of Odin and his brothers. The notion of world creation from the body of a primordial deity also exists in Indo-Iranian mythology, suggesting a common Indo-European ancestry. At the center of this universe stands Yggdrasil, the giant evergreen ash tree, whose 3 broad roots stretch into the realms of the dead, frost giants, and humanity. A stag gnaws at its leaves, its trunk slowly rots, and a frightening monster devours its roots. As Ragnarok approaches, the tree will quiver and perhaps collapse. Beneath it sits a well, the source of learning. Odin, in his persistent quest for knowledge, once drank from this well, paying the price by sacrificing one of his eyes. The gods' Old Norse mythology cites a great variety of deities, with evidence from place names showing that various gods were revered at different eras. In southeastern Norway and southern Sweden, vestiges of devotion to the deity Ular, are especially evident. An old poem even mentions an oath signed on Ul's holy ring, showing that he was formerly considered as one of the most powerful gods, at least in some locations. However, nothing more is known about him. Ul was linked with archery and snowshoes, and according to Saxo Grammaticus, who refers to him as Ollerus, he once usurped Odin's place on the throne when the Allfather was briefly banished. The Norse gods were roughly split into 2 clans, the Aesir and the Vanir. According to trustworthy reports, these 2 clans were formerly at war. However, since neither side could claim a definitive win, they established a ceasefire and swapped captives as part of their peace accord. Through this transaction, the Vanir, who were predominantly fertility gods, became absorbed into the Aesir pantheon. Among them were Njörd, Njörder, his son Freyr, and perhaps his daughter Freya. all of whom came to be worshipped alongside the Aesir in Norse mythology. Odin, the greatest and most powerful god in Norse mythology, was the ruler of Asgard. He was not just a king, but was also considered a wise man, a warrior, and a sorcerer. He was a seeker of knowledge, willing to endure any hardship to attain truth and wisdom. Odin was known not only for his strength, but also for his intelligence and insatiable thirst for knowledge. He sacrificed one of his eyes in Mimir's well just to gain insight into the deepest secrets of the world. His ability to think critically and foresee the future made him a legendary deity. This was just the beginning. Odin did not stop at knowledge. He also made great sacrifices to uncover the secrets of fate. It is said that he hung himself from Yggdrasil, the world tree, for 9 days and nights without any support, all to obtain the runes, mystical symbols that held the power of destiny and magic. Odin was not just a wise god, but also a master of war. However, he did not rely solely on brute force. He sent his 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin, to every corner of the world. These birds gathered information daily and whispered it into his ears, allowing Odin to remain informed about everything and make calculated decisions. The brave warriors of Asgard who fell in battle were taken to Odin's great hall, Valhalla, where they prepared for the final battle, Ragnarok. Ragnarok was the ultimate war in which Odin and his fellow gods would face their enemies. Odin knew that his fate had already been sealed. He was aware that one day Fenrir, the mighty wolf, would kill him. Yet, he never feared death. For him, knowledge, wisdom, and preparation were the most important things. Odin was often regarded as a ruthless god because he was unafraid of making difficult and harsh decisions. He did not use his power merely to win battles, but to unlock the mysteries of the universe. He was not just a ruler, but also a guide, an entity who embodied both the strength of war and the depth of wisdom. Finally, Ragnarok arrived. Odin and his warriors fought bravely, but no one could change destiny. Odin was ultimately slain by Fenrir. However, his story does not end here. His name, his knowledge, his wisdom, and his legend still live on. He remains a symbol of the belief that true power lies in wisdom and that the greatest sacrifices are made in the pursuit of truth and knowledge. Thor, the mighty god of thunder in Norse mythology, was the son of Odin and the protector of both gods and humans. Known for his unmatched strength and courage, he wielded the enchanted hammer, Mjolnir, a weapon so powerful that it could crush mountains and summon lightning. Thor was a divinity of an altogether different kind compared to Odin. Unlike Odin, whose devotion was restricted to aristocracy, Thor was universally adored, particularly at the end of the pagan age. His importance is reflected in place names, personal names, poetry, and prose. Though considered Odin's son, Thor's name stems from the Germanic word meaning thunder. Similar to Indra and other Indo-European thunder gods, he was the heavenly guardian of the gods, always fighting giants. His main weapon was Mjolnir, a short-handled hammer which he used to shatter the skulls of his foes. Thor was not just a warrior, he was the defender of Asgard, always ready to battle against the giants and any force that threatened the realm. Unlike his father Odin, who relied on wisdom and strategy, Thor was straightforward and relied on sheer strength and bravery. His presence on the battlefield was enough to strike fear into his enemies. One of Thor's most remarkable traits was his unwavering sense of justice. He was beloved by both gods and humans because he fought to protect them from chaos and destruction. Many legends tell of his countless battles with the giants, his fierce duels with monsters, and his journeys across different realms, always standing as a symbol of unyielding power. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, was not just a weapon, but a sacred tool that brought order to the universe. With it, he could summon storms, bless marriages, and ensure prosperity for the world. However, the hammer was so powerful that only Thor himself, with his iron will and unmatched strength, could wield it properly. Thor's adventures were legendary. He once went on a journey to the land of the giants, where he was tricked into facing impossible challenges. He attempted to drink from a horn connected to the ocean, wrestle an old woman who was actually the embodiment of old age, and lift a massive cat that was secretly the world serpent, Jormungandr. Though he failed in these tasks, his efforts showcased his immense power and determination. Despite his strength, Thor was not invincible. His greatest foe was Jormungandr, the massive serpent destined to battle him during Ragnarok. When the final battle came, Thor fought Jormungandr with all his might and ultimately struck the serpent down with Mjolnir. However, the serpent's venom had already done its work. After taking 9 steps, Thor succumbed to the poison and fell, marking the end of one of the greatest gods in Norse mythology. Unlike Odin, who was predominantly worshipped by kings and warriors, Thor was the deity of the ordinary people. His worship was popular in eastern Scandinavia and England when peasants asked him for rains to secure plentiful crops. Warriors also put their confidence in him, and his influence reached far and wide. Among the Saxons and Jutes in England, he was known as Thunor, while mainland Saxons adored him as Thunar. Even when the Vikings moved into Normandy and the Varangians built colonies in Russia, Thor remained crucial to their military prayers and conquests. Due to his affiliation with thunder, the Germanic deity Thunr's Thor was associated with Jupiter by the Romans, which is evident in the name of Thursday, German Donnerstag, matching to Jovis Dies, Italian Giovedì. Thor was commonly represented riding a chariot driven by goats, and later accounts imply that the sound of thunder was supposed to be the rumbling of his heavenly chariot. Thor's legacy, however, did not fade. He remained a symbol of strength, bravery, and protection. His name continued to be revered, and his deeds were remembered as tales of heroism and valor. Unlike Odin, who pursued knowledge and wisdom, Thor embodied raw power and the unbreakable spirit of a true warrior. Baldur, the shining god of light, purity, and beauty in Norse mythology, was the son of Odin and Frigg. Unlike his mighty brother Thor, known for his brute strength and thunderous battles, Baldur was a symbol of peace, wisdom, and righteousness. His presence brought joy to Asgard, and he was beloved by all gods and mortals alike. Baldur was known for his radiant beauty and flawless nature, often compared to the sun itself. He was gentle, kind-hearted, and wise beyond measure. His very existence was seen as a blessing, and his words carried great weight in the halls of the gods. However, despite his noble qualities, fate had a cruel destiny in store for him. One day, Baldur began having ominous dreams of his own death. Troubled by these visions, the gods sought ways to protect him. Frigg, his devoted mother, took it upon herself to secure an oath from all things in existence, stones, metals, plants, animals, and even diseases, that they would never harm her beloved son. She succeeded in obtaining these promises, making Baldur seemingly invulnerable. With Baldur now impervious to harm, the gods playfully tested his newfound invincibility. They hurled stones, weapons, and other objects at him, only to watch them bounce off harmlessly. This became a source of amusement in Asgard, reinforcing the belief that Baldur was truly untouchable. However, one entity had been overlooked: mistletoe. Frigg had deemed it too small and insignificant to seek an oath from, an oversight that would lead to tragedy. Loki, the cunning trickster of the gods, grew jealous of Baldur's admiration and sought to exploit this loophole. He crafted a dart from the mistletoe and tricked Baldur's blind brother, Hoder, into throwing it at him. The dart struck Baldur's heart, and to the horror of all present, the god of light fell dead. The gods were devastated. Never before had such grief struck Asgard. Frigg, inconsolable, pleaded for Baldur's return. Hermod, Odin's son, rode to Hel, the realm of the dead, to bargain with Hel, the ruler of the underworld. She agreed to release Baldur on one condition: all things in existence must weep for him. The gods sent messengers across the realms, and every creature, tree, and stone shed tears for Baldur's return. However, Loki, disguised as a giantess named Thok, refused to mourn. Because of this single refusal, Hel's condition was not met, and Baldur was doomed to remain in the underworld until Ragnarok, the end of days. Baldur's death marked the beginning of a series of calamities leading to the great battle of Ragnarok. His loss symbolized the fading light and the impending doom of the gods. However, prophecies foretold that after Ragnarok, Baldur would rise again and rule over a new, purified world. Thus, Baldur, the god of light and purity, remained not just a tragic figure in Norse mythology, but also a symbol of hope and renewal, destined to bring peace and harmony after the destruction of the old world. Loki, the enigmatic trickster god of Norse mythology, was a figure of both mischief and ingenuity. Unlike the other gods of Asgard, Loki's origins were shrouded in ambiguity. He was not fully Aesir, but a Jotun, a frost giant who earned his place among the gods through his cunning and charisma. As the son of Farbauti and Laufey, Loki possessed an unpredictable nature that made him both an ally and a menace to the gods of Asgard. Loki was known for his shape-shifting abilities, which allowed him to transform into various creatures, including a fly, a salmon, a mare, and even a giantess. His intelligence and wit often made him invaluable in times of crisis, but his pranks and deceptions also brought great trouble to the gods. Despite his mischievous tendencies, Loki played a crucial role in many legendary events of Norse mythology. One of his most infamous acts involved the death of Baldur, the beloved god of light. When Baldur began having dreams foretelling his demise, his mother, Frigg, extracted oaths from all things never to harm him, except for mistletoe, which she deemed too insignificant. Loki, always seeking chaos, crafted a dart from mistletoe and tricked Baldur's blind brother, Hoder, into throwing it at him, leading to Baldur's tragic death. This act set into motion a chain of events that would eventually contribute to Ragnarok, the end of the world. Loki's cunning also played a role in many of Asgard's greatest triumphs. He was responsible for securing the mighty weapons of the gods, including Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. When Loki tricked the dwarves Brokkr and Sindri into forging treasures for the gods, they crafted Mjolnir, Odin's spear Gungnir, and Freyr's ship Skidbladnir, among other legendary artifacts. Though Loki intended to deceive, his actions inadvertently strengthened the gods' power. However, Loki's betrayals eventually outweighed his contributions. After Baldur's death, the gods could no longer tolerate his treachery. They captured him and bound him to 3 sharp rocks with the entrails of his own son. Above him, a venomous serpent dripped poison onto his face, causing him excruciating pain. His wife, Sigyn, remained by his side, holding a bowl to catch the venom, but each time she emptied it, Loki writhed in agony, causing earthquakes in Midgard. Loki remained bound until Ragnarok, when he would break free and lead the forces of chaos against the gods. As the commander of the giants and the father of monstrous beings, such as Fenrir, Jörmungandr, and Hel, Loki's role in the final battle was one of destruction. He would ultimately face Heimdall, the watchman of the gods, and the two would slay each other in a climactic struggle. Despite his reputation as a trickster and a villain, Loki was not purely evil. His actions reflected the balance of creation and destruction, and his presence was essential to the unfolding of destiny. Whether as a deceiver, a helper, or a bringer of doom, Loki's influence on Norse mythology was undeniable, making him one of its most complex and fascinating figures. The Aesir, the principal gods of Norse mythology, were not limited to the well-known figures of Odin, Thor, and Loki. Alongside these prominent deities, there existed a group of lesser-known gods and goddesses, collectively referred to as the Minor Aesir. Though they played smaller roles in mythological narratives, their influence and importance in the divine order of Asgard were undeniable. One of these minor Aesir was Vali, the son of Odin and the giantess Rindr. Vali was born solely to avenge the death of Balder, Odin's beloved son. Unlike other gods who grew naturally, Vali matured within a day of his birth, immediately fulfilling his purpose by slaying Hodr, the blind god tricked by Loki into killing Balder. Vali's existence symbolizes divine retribution and the inevitable fate of those who transgress. Another significant but lesser-known Aesir was Vidar, the silent god of vengeance. Son of Odin and the giantess Grid, Vidar was known for his immense strength and resilience. He rarely spoke, but his silence was matched by his formidable power. During Ragnarok, he was prophesied to avenge Odin's death by slaying Fenrir, the monstrous wolf that devoured the Allfather. Vidar accomplished this by using his enchanted boot to tear the beast's jaw apart, cementing his role as a god of justice and retribution. Forseti, the god of justice and reconciliation, was the son of Balder and Nanna. Unlike the warlike nature of many Aesir, Forseti was a deity of peace and fair judgment. He presided over Glitnir, a shining hall where disputes were settled in harmony. His presence in the pantheon reflected the value the Norse placed on law and order, though his role in myths was relatively obscure. Bragi, the god of poetry and eloquence, was another important yet lesser-known member of the Aesir. He was known for his wisdom and mastery of words, making him the patron of skalds, poets. His eloquence was believed to be a divine gift, inspiring poets to create verses that immortalized the deeds of gods and heroes. Bragi's presence in Asgard ensured that the traditions and histories of the Norse were preserved through oral storytelling. The goddess Idun also held a unique place among the Aesir. She was the keeper of the golden apples that granted the gods their youth and immortality. Without her, the Aesir would wither and age, making her role vital to their eternal existence. Her abduction by the giant Thjazi and subsequent rescue by Loki is one of the more famous myths associated with her. The minor Aesir, though often overshadowed by the more prominent gods, were integral to the mythology and function of Asgard. They represented various aspects of life, from justice and poetry to vengeance and immortality. Their contributions, though sometimes subtle, played a vital role in shaping the rich tapestry of Norse mythology, ensuring balance and continuity in the divine order. Bragi is regarded in later writings as the deity of poetry and eloquence. Interestingly, the earliest known skald, Norse poet, who lived in the 9th century, also carried the name Bragi. Since there is no historical evidence of a devoted worship for the god Bragi, some historians argue that the deity and the poet could possibly be the same character. Frigg is the wife of Odin. In southern Germanic texts, she is known as Freya, second Merseburg charm, or Freya, Langobardic, and is described as the spouse of Woden. Snorri describes her as the weeping mother of Balder, whereas Saxo gives a contrasting portrayal, characterizing her as unchaste and blaming Odin's brief exile on her wrongdoing. In the Ynglinga epic, during Odin's absence, his brothers Vili and Ve share her in a polyandrous relationship, evocative of Draupad in Hindu mythology. Frigg has been connected with Venus, and her name is maintained in Friday, Old English Fragadag, derived from Dies Veneris, meaning Venus's day. Idun, an early skaldic poem, circa 900, names Idun, the wife of Bragi, as the guardian of the magical apples that bring the gods perpetual youth. When the giant Thiazi snatched her, the gods started to age, but Loki cunningly recovered her along with the valuable apples. This story shows remarkable parallels to the legend of Heracles rescuing the golden apples of the Hesperides. Jord, meaning earth, is described as the mother of Thor and the consort of Odin. She is also known by various names, including Fjörgyn, earth, presumably an ancient goddess of the furrow, and Hlodin. A goddess called Hludana is similarly attested in votive inscriptions discovered in Lower Germany and Holland. Vanir. The Vanir were a unique set of gods linked with riches, health, and fertility. Unlike the Aesir, who were primarily gods of war and power, the Vanir were not particularly warlike, though they could fight when necessary. They were known for their deep connection to nature, prosperity, and magic. The Aesir and Vanir once waged a great war, but when neither side could achieve victory, they agreed to a truce. As part of the peace settlement, the most well-known Vanir, Njord, Freyr, and perhaps Freya, became hostages to the Aesir. Despite being captives, they were honored and integrated into Asgard, becoming key figures in Norse mythology. Freyr was one of the most important gods of the Vanir in Norse mythology. He was associated with fertility, wealth, peace, and good harvests. After the Aesir-Vanir War, he, along with his father Njord and sister Freya, was sent to Asgard as part of the peace agreement. Despite being a Vanir god, he became highly respected among the Aesir and was worshipped widely, especially in Sweden and Norway. Freyr was often depicted with a golden-bristled boar named Gullinbursti, which could run through the air and water faster than any horse. He also owned a ship called Skidbladnir, which was large enough to carry all the gods, yet could be folded small enough to fit in a pocket. Despite being a god of peace, Freyr was destined to fight in Ragnarok, the final battle of the gods. However, he had given away his magical sword, which could fight on its own, in exchange for Gerd's love. Because of this, he fought the fire giant Surtur unarmed and was killed, marking the end of prosperity before the world's rebirth. Freyr was widely worshipped across Scandinavia, especially in Uppsala, Sweden, where great sacrifices were made in his honor. He was considered a god of prosperity and kingship, with many rulers claiming to be his descendants. Even after Ragnarok, Freyr's legacy as a bringer of peace, fertility, and abundance remained strong in Norse mythology, symbolizing the cycle of life, love, and renewal. Freya, the goddess of love, beauty, and magic. Freyr's sister, Freya, shares many features with him. She was the goddess of love, riches, and fertility, owning priceless gems like the famed necklace, Brisingamen, fashioned by dwarfs. Freya is frequently depicted as sobbing tears of gold for her absent spouse, although she is also accused of promiscuity. She performed Seder, a strong and generally disreputable sort of magic, which she subsequently taught to Odin. Like her brother, she was known by numerous names, some obscure, such as Mardul, and others like Seer, Sau, emphasizing her relationship with animals. Freya also had a relationship with death, as she claimed half of the soldiers who perished in combat, a feature tying her to the chthonic deities of the underworld. The relationship between fertility goddesses and the otherworld is seen in early Germanic traditions. The Matronae, or mother goddesses, extensively adored in the Lower Rhine during the Roman imperial period, were typically represented with symbols of the underworld, such as dogs, snakes, or baskets of fruit. A similar relationship exists in the religion of the goddess Nehelenia, venerated near the mouth of the Scheldt River. Her name may be tied to the Greek nekues, meaning spirits of the dead, further confirming the belief that fertility goddesses also possessed rule over life, death, and the afterlife. Guardian spirits. Beyond gods and goddesses, medieval writings regularly describe female guardian spirits known as Dísir and Fylgjur. Originally, both notions were different, while subsequent authors occasionally used the phrases interchangeably. References to sacrifices for the Dísir exist many times, notably in conjunction with a ceremony done at the approach of winter. This ritual, which included a joyful dinner, seems to have been a private occasion, indicating that the Dísir were related to a certain home, area, or family. An Eddic poem depicts them as dead women, hinting that they may have been ancestral spirits, protecting the well-being and prosperity of their offspring. Unlike the Dísir, there is no evidence of a structured worship devoted to the Fylgja, plural, Fylgjur, a phrase best rendered as fetch or wraith. A Fylgja might emerge as either a lady or a beast, seldom seen save in dreams or at the time of death. It was thought to follow a person or a whole family, going from father to son upon death. Elves, Alfar, were also intimately tied to humans. An 11th century Icelandic Christian poet reported a sacrifice to the elves conducted by pagan Swedes at the onset of winter. Elves were thought to reside on mounds or within rocks. A tale describes how the blood of a slaughtered bull was spilled upon an elf-inhabited mound as an offering. Another supernatural presence in Norse religion was the Landvættir, or land spirits. According to pre-Christian Icelandic law, ships landing on the island were barred from wearing dragon-headed prows, since they may upset the land spirits. On one occasion, an Icelandic poet, condemning the king and queen of Norway, called for the Landvættir to drive them from the land. Dwarfs, Dvergar, play an important part in Norse mythology. Renowned for their knowledge and extraordinary workmanship, they were responsible for creating many of the gods' greatest treasures, including Thor's massive hammer, Mjolnir. According to Snorri Sturluson, dwarfs emerged as maggots inside the rotting flesh of the murdered primordial giant, Ymir. 4 of them, Nordri, Sudri, Austri, and Vestri, were thought to hold up the sky, which was fashioned from Ymir's skull. Though commonly described as residing in mountain caverns and far below, dwarfs may have initially been nature spirits or even demonic creatures. Despite their often mischievous disposition, they were usually regarded as allies to mankind, lending their artistry and expertise to anyone who sought their help. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Subscribe to Explore Ancient Times for more fascinating stories from history. See you in the next video. Until then, take care and keep exploring the past.